can you name individually what organizations they are, and then what kind of service portfolio, and what's the difference in terms of the messaging and the meaning of that organization versus the other one?
So Oakdale is our employment service, if you like. So we have partnerships with timber manufacturers and recycling manufacturers. And then we support people into work in other employers as well. And that's a really important focus for us. We have Lifestyle Solutions, which have recently bought into the group. And then we have Possibility Group, which is really our services. And then we have a range of other operating entities in different jurisdictions. And so that'll suit us at the moment. But ultimately, it's the important things for us about what's the mission that we're trying to achieve, and is there a values and mission alignment between those organisations, because we want to spend as much of the resources that we've got available to us in trying to make impact in the communities we serve.
And does these individual organisations have their own boards? So on the governance side of it, do you have multiple boards, or do you run with the one larger board which does governance across all these?
Yeah, but really it's the one larger board with sort of, they have boards of governance, but they're operating boards of governance, so that those organisations can do what they need to do.
Lovely. And in the evolution of the organisations, so your primary focus has been people with disabilities and that sector, or is there a next leap of moving to other sectors?
So no, we have a big focus on kids who can't live at home as well, and so we do that in most states of Australia. And I guess we've expanded and contracted those services according to the need and the settings, the policy settings in each of the jurisdictions, because that's still a system that is state-based. And that's
and you have a different brand every state, or you have the same?
So we trade that under Lifestyle Solutions, which came with all of that, although there is a small amount of that happens in Possibility as well. And we've got a really strong focus on kids with a disability in the out-of-home care system. And I mean, sadly, people with a disability are overrepresented in the out-of-home care system. And so we're really keen to try and understand how we can support them best to make sure that when they move out independently, that they are well supported and that the NDIS works for them. And unfortunately, at the moment, there's quite a disconnect between those state-based out-of-home care systems and when somebody will transition over to the NDIS. And we're trying to work really with government, with other stakeholders around that very issue to make sure that for somebody who is in the out-of-home care system who's going to go on to be an NDIS participant, that the supports and structures are there for them to succeed into adulthood.
And on that, so on the research side of it, what form are you inviting any universities to come along and do that research, or is it an internal format of research right now?
Yes, it's a good question. So we established a research institute back in 2019 called the Applied Research Centre for Disability and Wellbeing, and that's a separately formed company that's part of the group, and we've got board directors from universities on that, as well as an advisory group who advises on the research topics and focuses. So we've got a few PhD students who work in there at the moment, and one of those students is really focused on how people, particularly with intellectual disability, make decisions in the criminal justice system. So from the point of being arrested and charged right through to pleading, and how that might happen if they end up needing to go into some form of incarceration. So it's one of the research topics. Another is about what are the sort of least non-aversive and restrictive practices, and what are the best practices for that. And we've got quite a focus on that. And then we will invite other PhD candidates to work generally within the scope of what we're interested in within that research. And really that's about trying to deliver mission in a different way. It's about trying to find out what works, how you can make that repeatable, because there is actually a lot of evidence about what works in children and families, but also in disability support. Active support would be a classic point. But the question is, how do you make sure that you can apply that routinely and predictably, so that people who are receiving services, whether they're in WA, whether they're in South Australia, whether in the Northern Territory, get the same quality of service and the same models and practice, tailored obviously to the context, but so that the practice is based on evidence and consistently provided.